Hey everyone, in this week's Questions for Kerry, I want to answer the question, can you sell one of your homes with tenants in the home? And usually the answer is yes. However, the real question is, should you sell the home with the tenant in the home? I'm Kerry Fisher with 5 Star Real Estate, and so when I get posed this question by some of my investor friends or people that have a tenant in the home, usually the first thing I'm going to do is ask you to see a copy of that lease, because that's going to give me an indication of the terms of the lease. You know, what language did you include in there regarding showings of the home, selling the home? You know, how much have you rented it for? How many more months are left on that lease? Because that might dictate how we approach the answer to that question. So if I see you have a long-term lease in place and there's quite a few months remaining on that lease, and then we're going to talk about who will be the potential buyer for that property, right? So if an investor is going to buy that home and it's a long-term tenant and you have it under rented, so it's been rented for a long time, you haven't increased it for inflation or appreciation every year, and it's not being rented at fair market values, an investor's going to take all those numbers into consideration, right? They're going to have to weigh out, you know, how many more months they're going to have that tenant in place, you know, what type of rent are they going to be able to capture based on what you have in place, what are the expenses going to be, are the taxes going to increase with the sale? They're going to have to weigh in those expenses to really see if it's going to make sense for them. If you have it rented at fair market value, it might make more sense. So some of it's going to come down to, you know, what could you rent or sell that property for in today's market versus if we wait, let that tenant's lease end, all of a sudden you can, you know, potentially prove that it could be rented for a higher fair market value. Also, if you have a long-term lease in place, it's going to be tough to appeal to those buyers that need a place to live right now. And also, if you have somebody that needs to occupy the home, usually their mortgage lenders are going to require, or the lenders are going to require that they are occupying that home within 60 days. So you're going to limit your buyer pool if there's a long-term lease in place. However, if your lease is either month to month or it's going to be ending in the next 30 to 60 days, it makes it a little more doable for those buyers to come into play that need to occupy that home sooner than later. And also for the investors, because if the investor knows that, hey, if this lease is ending soon, I could get in there and I could rent it at more fair market value rents. So then the next piece of that is if we have a tenant occupying your home, there are some disadvantages. So, you know, not every tenant takes care of your home like you would. Some tenants might not live as tidy, they might not be very clean. Maybe there are some items of disrepair they haven't called you in to fix, or, you know, you've procrastinated fixing them because the tenant's there. So those are kind of the things that will cause a buyer to judge your home. And, you know, tenants may not always make it easy for showings. Sometimes they won't accommodate a showing request. They might push us off into next week or another day that doesn't work for all buyers' schedules. And sometimes when we do go for a showing and a tenant lives there, sometimes the tenants sit and watch us, and that can make it really uncomfortable for a buyer as well. So there are some real disadvantages to trying to sell when you have a tenant in place. Not always, there are some exceptions to that rule. But I would usually say, you know, let's sit down, let's talk about the lease you have in place, let's talk about where you could sell. You know, I'm always trying to help make sure you get the highest net for your sale. So let's talk about what makes sense. Give our team a call, 269-633-9243.